The Mastering Local Marketing podcast helps local small business owners like you understand what it takes to successfully market your business and drive new customers through your doors. We provide actionable insights, interview leading experts and business owners in various industries, as well as provide tips and tricks we've uncovered over the last 25 years in the field. Whether you're starting your business or you've been at it for decades, let us provide you with the education and resources you need to grow your customer base. It's time to start mastering your local marketing. Here's your host, Matt Hansen.
Hello, and I'm Matt Hansen with Mastering Local Marketing. We are back for our episode number 2. I am with my co-host, Jim Diedlow. Jim, how are you today?
Good. Thanks a lot. Honored always to be here.
Yeah.
Let's go right into it. You want to reintroduce everybody? I'll introduce him. He'll introduce me. Matt Hansen. He's a PNW clinical professor, and he is the digital marketing guru. And I actually got my MBA, and I took 2 classes from him, and that's where this whole thing started. And who am I?
Yeah, Jim. We've got Jim Diedlow with me today, my co-host here. He runs WJOB and JED TV and a variety of other things. He's got a great radio TV studio here that we are shooting this today. But yeah, we want to jump right into episode number 2 that we have today. We're going to dive into the illusions that we talked about in episode 1. So today we're going to dive into our first illusion, and that is getting out of your circle of influence. Now, my question is, right, Jim, what does that mean, right? And it's really what we're trying to talk about today is that everyone thinks everybody knows their company, right? Everybody that they talk to knows about their business. They're out there having discussions in the general public with their friends, their family, and everyone always asks them the same question, right? How's business, right? And with that, everybody has this deep-seated idea that everyone knows who they are. Again, let's be honest, it's not the case, right? So I had it, and funny enough, I was sitting down, I had a phone call yesterday with an agency that was going to see a client. And basically they were telling me, hey, you guys really need to talk about people need to get out of their friends and family and realize that not everybody knows who they are. And I said, well, it's funny enough that you say that. We're talking about that on the podcast tomorrow. And this was a financial company that they were dealing with, and they had not marketed. They've been around for years. They had not marketed in any giant capacity. And he was trying to kind of train them that you need to get outside of your walls. You need to get outside of your friends and family. And I said, wow, that's funny you say that because we're talking about it today, right? But another instance, and I like to kind of bring in my life stories as we're going through. Another instance, I was talking with my kids this week, and we were discussing music and whatever, and somehow, some way, U2 came up. And both of my kids, which are, one is 18 and one is 16, they went, who is U2? And I kind of went,
no way. No way.
They did, which made me feel really old. I said, obviously, you didn't have the iPhone when they downloaded the music to everyone's phone.
That was a mistake. Oh, they put it in everybody's phone. Oh, that was a mistake. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, mistake my butt.
Yeah. So, I was kind of laughing. So over this past week, every time U2 came up on the radio, I would turn it up for my kids and say, hey, this is U2. And they're like, oh, yeah, I've heard that before. And it was funny because the amount of U2 songs that we heard this week was amazing, right? Because you just don't notice it, right? So you hear it on the radio, you hear it in, on a commercial or whatever it may be, and you just don't realize it. And that's what we're talking about today is that you think everyone knows about you, but in reality, unless you're calling those people out to see you, they're not going to know who you are, okay? So I was laughing because last week we talked about go out there, do an activity, go talk to 100 people and ask them, hey, do you know who this company is? Now, I work at a college, right? And the number one thing that college students eat is...
Actually, right around here, there's been a prolific amount of brand new Mexican restaurants.
Okay.
But the big thing traditionally, and there are plenty of pizza places right around here, it's got to be pizza.
It's pizza, right?
Yeah.
So, we always joke whenever you want to get a college student into a room for anything, you invite them in for pizza and they all show up, right? So I thought, well, I've got these classes and I've got a big lecture hall, and I asked my students this week, I asked students and I also asked staff and faculty. And I said, all right, let's look at the pizza environment that is around this campus, right? And we have all of the major names that spend millions of dollars in marketing, but then we have local mom and pop pizza places. And when I started looking at that, I said, well, there were two. Let's look at the two closest to campus. So I found Venice Pizza and House of Pizza, right? And they have been staples in our community for years. And funny enough, Venice Pizza has been around for 36 years, according to their website and Facebook. And House of Pizza, believe it or not, has been around for 71 years, right? So we have these big staples in the, in our environment here that everyone should really kind of know. So I reached out and I said, okay, let's start doing a simple survey. So I'm asking, like I said, faculty, staff, students, and I asked them, how many of you know Venice Pizza? How many of you know House of Pizza, right? And funny enough, what do you think happened?
I would say, since I've been eating House of Pizza since, Jimmy Carter was president, and I know them well, but I also know Venice. Mm-hmm. But basically, Venice is on one side of the campus, right, and House of Pizza is on the other side of the campus. We're on the campus right next to House of Pizza, so that was, I would say at least half the people know House of Pizza.
Okay,
and Venice probably half of that. Okay. Am I around in the ballpark?
Not even close.
Oh,
not even close, right? So what we found, we talked to 100 people. We found that 4% knew where Venice Pizza was.
No way.
4%, right? Now, I get it that, it's a very small sample size and whatever, but 4%. So somebody that has been here for 36 years is only known by 4% of those that I talked to on campus. That's small, right? Let's look at House of Pizza. I, too, have been to House of Pizza since I was a kid, right? So I used to live down the street. We would have House of Pizza. My mom would pick it up on the way home from work, whether it was the pizza or the hoagie or whatever it may be, right?
It's a Zuniga family, and right, they've had it for generations.
Right. So, have been there. I would have thought the number would have been close to 50, 60, 70%. But what we actually found was even that was only at 16% in the simple survey. Blows your mind, doesn't it?
Are we able to ask our engineer a question? Our engineer is Adriana Alvarez. We're on the campus. So, Adriana, do you know where Venice Pizza is?
I believe so. Isn't it on, unless I'm thinking of a different one, isn't Venice Pizza on Calumet Avenue?
Nope.
I'm thinking of a different one.
You're thinking of a different one.
I'm thinking of Verona's then.
Yes. Do you know where House of Pizza is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so 4 times more, basically, know House of Pizza. Have you ever had a House of Pizza?
Oh, all the time.
All right, there you go. So not Venice, even though it's right next to your dorm. Believe it or not.
Where's it at?
It's on Kennedy. Right next to your dorm.
Okay.
But anyways,
right?
So what do you learn from all of this?
So what I'm saying is everyone thinks everyone knows their business. And these are companies that have been around for 36, 71 years, right? I'm 48 years old. House of Pizza has been around for almost, 25 years longer than I've been alive. And only 16% of our survey knew who they were, right? Or where they were. That's a problem. Right, so we're talking about awareness and getting out of the kind of mindset that you have, right? And if you may not believe this either, but when it comes to local businesses, roughly 10 to 30% of the market knows where you are or who you are, right? So that's relatively nothing. Right. So when you think about 1,000 people and you say 10% of 1,000 people, that's 100 people. So 900 people are driving by your business every single day and not paying attention to who you are. Maybe you're hidden kind of in a strip mall or, maybe you just don't have the signage that they're noticing. That's a real problem. Now, keep in mind, I know in the first podcast we kind of talked about general awareness of large brands, but 70 to 90% is the average awareness for huge brands. And what I'm talking about are the brands that you see being advertised on TV at any given moment, right? So I've seen the numbers, and I can tell you that the large brands, the Fords, the Chevys, the one that was almost we always talked about in class because of how Victoria's Secret kind of took the shot up to where they were, that was at 94%. So there's 6% of people that are hiding out there in a cave somewhere that don't know what these brands are. When you talk about local marketing, it's much worse. So what we're saying is we need to really kind of get out there and talk to these individuals. We need to do something that we can get them to notice us.
10 to 30 on the local and 70 to 90 on the huge brands.
Right.
Gosh, for just because we are in local media and I got 100 clients, that I would have guessed it was higher.
Right.
Like we're sitting in the Strachan Van Til studios here in Hammond. They have 22 grocery stores in the Northwest Indiana area. I got to believe that they're above 30. Maybe.
Right.
I mean, if somebody just shops for their food at Costco and doesn't, and they moved in from Illinois, they may not know. So, I would love to know what their awareness is. Certainly we have all these unions and these colleges and hospitals. I can't believe that their awareness would be anywhere under a third. And now all of a sudden that's a project for Adriana in one of her digital marketing classes that you teach.
Yeah.
Hey, what's farm mean?
Yeah, it's a term that I love to use, right? So we talk about kind of the environment that we're in. I grew up in a small town, right? So I grew up in Lowell, Indiana, and one of the things about Lowell is everyone kind of says it's a farm town, which it is, right? And I laugh that I think I was, in middle school before we got our first McDonald's, right? And there really was just nothing there. But when we talk about farm, I look at it and I say, okay, where are we farming our customers from? Where are we pulling them from, right? So when you have, if I were to decide right now, I'm going to put a local business right here where we are sitting today, my farm is going to be where, right? Is it going to be, we're sitting in Hammond, so I'm in, obviously Hammond would be a good spot to target individuals. Highland is right across the expressway. We've got East Chicago and so forth, right? But you have to realize that there are a variety of things that cause your farm and where you're pulling customers from to, there's distractions, there's, there's all of these types of things that you have to look at, right? We have basic demographics that we have to pull from. Are you selling something that's really expensive? We have to look at income levels. We have to look at transit. We have to look at how the highways are, right? So we live in Northwest Indiana, and Northwest Indiana we have North Lake County, South Lake County, and I talk about this in a lot of my classes and a lot of my clients is there are dividers, right? So right now we're on 41, right? US 41. And then there's US 30, and then there's I-65. And these are all
crossroads of the nation.
Right. They're crossroads. And what happens is they divide us. And I don't think people realize that, right? So again, I was giving a lecture to about 40 small businesses a while back, and I said, how many of you are in North Lake County? And the hands go up. I go, how many are in South Lake County? Few hands go up. And I said, okay, those of you in South Lake County, if you're hungry, how many of you go north of 30? And none of the hands went up. I said, how many of you that are in North Lake County go south of 30 to South Lake County? And a few hands kind of went up, and I said, why? They said, well, we're looking for something special. We want to get out of the area. We want to go find something. Maybe they run over to, the Crown Point area or whatever it may be, right? But we have these dividing lines. I have friends that live out in Valparaiso. You know how many times I get out to Valparaiso? Now, Valparaiso, for those of you who are listening, Valparaiso is about 40 minutes from my house, and you have to go past I-65. And once you get past I-65, it kind of turns into no man's land until you get to Valparaiso, which is kind of farther out. And that's in a different county. It's these imaginary borders that make people, they don't want to travel, right? So I think the best example in our area is that 30 going north of 30 and south of 30. So there's dividing lines, right? And what we like to look at this is whether you're in a major city or you're in, like most of probably our listeners are, in a rural environment with 5,000 to 10,000 people in their town, it's different where you're going to go, right? So if you're in a city, like if you're in downtown Chicago and you live in the Loop, odds are you're not going to go all the way far north side, maybe up to Evanston to go eat.
Or right? Even anywhere, even to Lincoln Park.
Right. Right, because
You're
it's a pain.
there's so many places in the loop.
Right,
Yeah.
because it takes you time, right? So I remember, we were in the city. We took a cab from Wrigley back down to where Soldier Field is, and it took us forever because obviously a Cubs game was letting out and traffic. But I thought, man, that was a horrible experience, just stop and go traffic and whatever else. So people don't want to travel a long distance, and what I mean by distance isn't distance in actual miles. We're talking time, right? So most people will travel roughly around 20 minutes at the max to get to what they want to do. When you look at gas stations, when you look at grocery stores, they're not going to travel 20 minutes to go get gas. They're not going to travel 20 minutes to go get a gallon of milk. They may travel 20 minutes to go actually their favorite restaurant, right? So we have to look at these barriers and we have to understand, okay, if 20 minutes is the distance, the time distance that they want to go, are we in that distance, right? So if I want to go out and if I'm sitting here in Hammond and I want to market to somebody that lives in Lowell is 45 minutes away from here. Are they going to drive all the way up here? Probably not. So that's really what we have to understand when we're talking about a farm. What is your farm? And I always look at it in terms of time, not distance. And really understand that, are they willing to make that drive over or take transit over, or however it may be. But again, most of our listeners, most local businesses, most people in the United States, and that's roughly 74% of people live in rural areas. They don't live in the major cities. So when you're in a small town, let's say of 5,000 people, you may have to travel to that other town, and that may add some time and distance, right? So again, targeting those areas, you have to understand what your farm is, because a city is much different than a rural area. You got to expand that reach in a rural area, whereas a city, you can pretty much just like drop on top of them.
So let's just review that,
Sure.
because there's all sorts of people that are, we're trying to break it down as simply as we can in sort of mastering local marketing. There is a definite difference between, all right, here we are, even we're kind of city here, right. Mostly city. You just want to concentrate on your farm, which is walking or driving distance.
Right.
And in the city, it'd probably be more walking, and here would be more driving. But if you are out, and most of Indiana is rural,
right.
like where you grew up,
right.
although Lowell is now one of our schools, they're not as rural than they once were, but there are still a lot of parts of, if you're in Culver, mm-hmm. are you also trying to market to Plymouth, which is 17 miles away? Right. Absolutely. That's where you're not going to fill your restaurant in Culver in the off season with just people from this Culver Academy and living in there, because it's only several hundred.
Right.
You have to go in there where it's tens of thousands and market to Plymouth.
Right.
So am I summarizing it right?
Yeah. And, when we look at the farm too, we look at in terms of time, distance to travel, but we also have to look at the number of people, right? So if you live in a town of 5,000, what's the odds that you're going to have, your restaurant or your plumbing company is going to be constantly busy based on those 5,000 people? It's not, right? So you need to expand beyond that, and you have to go, well, what makes sense for me, right? What is the number that I want to convert here, right? Like, how many people do I need to generate that awareness to get to where I need to get on a customer level, right? So we talk about that when it comes to funnels.
And
right?
that's exactly where I wanted to get to right now. And so we're really talking about a very simple process. Mm-hmm. I went through, and the Matt Hansen is a 3-step process funnel. And I went over to Salesforce. They have an 7-step funnel, and Indeed has an 8-step funnel. I'll just really read Salesforce really quick. Customer reach, prospecting, qualification, presentation and demo, proposal, negotiation, close the deal. They don't even include follow up or generate any of that. Indeed has longer. I have, and I've taken a lot of, the marketing classes over here, and it always seemed like some of them were like 12-step processes. You've broken it down for the local marketer, the local business, to 3 steps. Tell us about it.
Yeah, they're simple, right? We're trying to keep things very, very simple. And what we really need to understand is we drive awareness, right? So people need to know we're there. And then just because they know that we're there doesn't mean that they're going to consider coming over to us, right? So we talk about awareness and then consideration, and then we talk about conversion, right? The actual sale. Let's say 100 people know about us. That's great. But not 100 of those 100 people are not necessarily ever going to consider coming over and shopping or buying, dining at our restaurant or whatever it may be. I don't know. To me, it's interesting because everyone thinks, oh, well, if you build it, they will come, which is not. It just doesn't work that way. So let's drive the awareness, and once we get to the awareness, then we need to go. Okay, well, we need to provide something of value to get them to consider to come over, right? So I'm running some campaigns for some clients right now, and the discussions that we're having is the awareness is great. I think I sent you a thing yesterday with we talked about CPMs last time, cost per thousand impressions.
He sent me a thing, a clip of, we won't say the client or anything, but it was a 1.32 CPM, and I'm like, and the average I think on Meta is 7.7, and I'm like, I don't know how you got that, but congratulations.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, that's the third campaign that we've run for that client, and at that level. So just to let you know, but really, what we're saying is we with these clients, I'm telling them, all right, we're generating awareness. Now people are coming over to a website or whatever we've set up for that process, a landing page. Now we have to get them to consider coming to our business or to consider buying something that we are offering. And that's the hard part for a lot of local marketers, right? They think, oh, well, they know who we are now. Now they're just going to come in. And I've literally, like I said, I've been talking to some clients this week, and I said, we're driving great traffic. We're getting great click-throughs on your ads. But when they're coming over to your site, the offer isn't good enough. Right? They're not understanding it. And many times the local marketers, they want to do it and kind of, have them fill out a form or whatever it may be. And I say, well, the ad has to match the offer that on your site or whatever. Like, we have to pull them, think of it as consumer behavior, right? So we have to understand the journey that they're going down, right? So, wow, okay, I never knew this company was there. I click on their ad or whatever we have out there, and I come over to a landing page, and the landing page doesn't necessarily match what was on the ad, and people go, okay, I don't know what this is, and I'm out, right? Because we all have the attention of they say a goldfish has more attention than us at this point, right? We don't pay attention to things. We're constantly swiping and whatever else. So, we have to, again, drive that awareness. We have to drive them over to something where they will consider an offer, right? They say in the restaurant business, you got to get them in 3 times, right? So, give them a free appetizer, give them, whatever, a free dessert, and like those types of things will drive people in to try you, right? So we have awareness, consideration, and then we have the conversion side of things. And those numbers, when we look at it, we call it a funnel, right? So it's all of these people these are all of our customers, and then we have just below that is the out of those customers, those that are actually aware of who we are, and then of those that are aware, who would consider, and then who would consider actually purchase, right? And we've had these conversations for years, and people come to us and they're like, awareness is the problem. And I'm like, okay, and we'll go out there and we'll find really great numbers on the awareness, but then the consideration is at 16%. And we're just going, we got a problem here. It's the messaging that you're putting out there that doesn't make sense. So again, I like the 3-step, right? You can go 8 steps, you can go 12 steps, but let's be honest, let's keep it simple. It's awareness, then consideration, then, the conversion side of things. And, once you've converted to a customer, then, in our next podcast, we're actually going to talk about, the Jekyll and Hyde of customers, the good and the bad.
So let's just, most of the people that are going to be listening to or watching this podcast, it's, I really just need something that I can easily understand. Right. And if you type in sales funnel or sales cycle or selling cycle, you will get Indeed and Salesforce and all that with it. The lowest I saw was 7 stages, and it went all the way up to 15 stages. And the 3-step process of awareness, consideration, and purchase is I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember you teaching it, and I kind of got away from it. But this is a 3-step process that the local business can comprehend, and they don't really have to go outside of that.
No.
You don't need all this other negotiation, qualification, and all that stuff. That's all kind of part of each little one. But if you concentrate on those 3 parts of the funnel, what can happen?
Oh, it's amazing results, right? So if you know your numbers, and I don't want to get into technical details here, especially in the digital sense, but I actually work backward, right? So if I know how many people consider us from that awareness figure and how many people will purchase from that, would consider, I can actually work backward. I can say, all right, well, I want to get 100 customers in the door. I can actually work backward up the funnel and say, I need to generate X number of impressions, and that's going to cost me this budget. And I do that all the time. Especially with my clients, I say, where do you want to be? They're like, oh, we'd love to get, 100 people in the door. Okay, well, let's understand our funnel first, and then we'll work backward. And we need to spend, $300 this month to do what you want to do. And they're just like, how do you know that, right? I was laughing. I was in an entrepreneurship class, and we were talking with new startups, and they were looking at how they can generate enough sales in their marketing. And I said, well, let's work backward. And the students in the class hadn't really taken a lot of marketing classes. And they said, what is that? And what are you, like a wizard? You just work your way backward? And I said, it's just numbers, right? It's simple math. And, again, if you put 100 people in a room, how many are aware, how many consider, how many have purchased from you, you can work your way back up that funnel and really understand how much, if you want to get 100 customers, this is where we got to be.
Quick tips for the local business.
Oh, people forget about the number one person that's going to help you in business, and that's their customers, right? So you have your best customers, and those are the people that walk in, their name, their family history, what they buy from you, how often they buy from you, what their average order is, right? And they are friends, right? So they have become friends through the years. Maybe they've got their own little booth. It's like your normal booth. They always order the same thing at a restaurant or whatever it may be. They are your best referrals, right? Develop some kind of program to where they can go out there and start pushing you and make them part of the company as well and reward them in some capacity, right? And I don't want to get into long-winded details of what that would look like today because we're trying to keep it short for your time. But I look at customers, right? The second thing is there are other businesses out there that have the exact same target audience you want to go after, and they're not competing with you. Go out there and find them, right? So when we had the home decor shop, we went out there. We knew that 98% of our audience was women, so we went over to Curves right around the corner and partnered with Curves on a project. And Curves would send people over to us, and we would send people over to Curves. There was no money exchange whatsoever. It was no ad dollars, other than we were helping each other push traffic back and forth, and people would show up constantly. The other thing is, if you want to get a little bit more technical, you can drop ads right on top of people, right? So digital allows us to literally drop ads right on top, whether it's Meta or whether it's programmatic. And I don't want to get into those details today, but everyone always says I'm a little scary when I start talking about how I can target you. But at this point in the world, if you take a 3-foot by 3-foot area, I can drop an ad right on top of that and only target those that walk in that square.
Well, I will just concur that he is a bit scary, because I remember we were having the discussion about how the technology, just a couple of years ago, and this is pretty accepted now, but you were like, gosh, man, if somebody has a phone on and I can now figure out how to get on their phone, in a fairly short period of time. And I'm like, gosh, is that scary? And you're like, no, it's not scary. It's great. I go, well, it depends how you look at it.
Right.
But the tools are there, and your competitors are using them. Right. So whatever your ideas are about privacy and this kind of thing, the tools are there, and you got to use them.
Well, and we use it basically. Let's say you're a shoe company, right? You sell shoes in a local market. You can literally go out there and target the other shoe companies, drop it right on top of them. right? So if somebody's going and they're shopping for shoes, right, they walk into a Foot Locker or something like that, a Finish Line, you can actually put an ad right on top of that, and then they'll start seeing your ad for the next few days. So if they don't buy something there, maybe then they know, oh, I never knew that company was there.
Awareness.
Right.
Part of the funnel.
That's all it comes down to.
Any other tips you want to say?
The only other one, you hear it a lot, is influencers, and I hate that term. But what I can tell you is the easiest way to do influencer marketing is not to go out there and, try and spend huge dollar amounts on these major influencers. But in your local market, all you have to do is go and search a local hashtag, right? Take your town or whatever it may be and search and try to find those individuals that have a lot of followers that are local. And I've done that in the past. And really what I find is a lot of 20, 30 somethings that have anywhere from like 5,000 to 20,000 followers. And they're doing, they've got their certain niche, right? So maybe it's in hair, right? They do hair and whatever, or maybe they're food bloggers or something like that. Just reach out to those types of people. I mean, we've got one locally that I talk with every once in a while, and he's got a ton of followers, and he's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, if you called him up and said, "Hey, let's go to lunch or let's go have a coffee," he'd be 100% in. So I think everyone kind of makes this out as the big brands are using influencers, but really there's local people that are just like you and me that will really, they'd love to partner with you. What can we do? And it's not going to cost a lot.
Average awareness for your local business, 10 to 30%. Where is your farm? And try to figure that out and farm to your farm. Of course, the funnel, that's my favorite here, is the awareness, consideration, and then the purchase. And then, of course, a bunch of tips on this podcast, including how to use local influencers. I will just make one thing. We do a lot of high school games. Mm-hmm. Tonight we're doing 7. And, we put them on TV. But in Indiana, we cannot approach them yet with just, hey, we'll give you $20 to put us on your feed or something like that. There are no NILs. As soon as they change that, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that they don't have to be high school kids. They could be, we also do several, I think 6 college games in the next few days. Those are the ones that we can do now. Yeah. But that's just an example. Anything else you want to add?
No. I mean, we're going to get in, like I said, we're going to get into each one of these illusions, the 5 illusions. This is the first illusion, like I said. The next podcast, we're going to get into the Jekyll and Hyde of your customers, right? So the good and the bad, and really kind of understanding, sharing some of those stories. So hopefully you'll see us on the 3rd episode, and looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot. This has been Mastering Local Marketing with Matt Hansen, the digital marketing guru, and I'm Jim Diedlow, Jed of Jed TV and WJOB. Until next time, we'll see you later.
The Mastering Local Marketing podcast helps local small business owners like you understand what it takes to successfully market your business and drive new customers through your doors. We provide actionable insights, interview leading experts and business owners in various industries, as well as provide tips and tricks we've uncovered over the last 25 years in the field. Whether you're starting your business or you've been at it for decades, let us provide you with the education and resources you need to grow your customer base. It's time to start mastering your local marketing.